Well, hello again, KCIW listeners, and welcome to Curry Café and a huge happy Pride Month out there. That's why we're here today, but I'll let Mr. Ray go further than that. So anyway, I'm producer and volunteer Rick McNamer. Every Sunday from 3 to 4, your host Ray Gary puts together a panel of guests to discuss topics of interest in our community. Listeners can participate by texting questions or comments to 541-661-4098. Again, questions or comments, please text to 541-661-4098. Now here's Ray to tell us about today's show.
Yeah, as Rick said, I think you did say we're going to talk about Pride, didn't you?
Of course.
Okay.
It's Pride Month.
Yeah, well,
you should know that.
Just let the cat out of the bag that I never listen to what you're saying.
Oh. We're waving pride flags here, by the way.
We have a couple of guests today who should be able to speak with some authority about this subject. And I think let's just jump right in and we'll go around the table, have everybody introduce themselves. We start with you.
All righty.
And
good afternoon. I'm glad to be here with Rick and Ray, who I've never met personally, but finally I get to see your faces and match the names. So thank you for having me here. My name is Joanie Lindenmeyer. I'm the author of 3 books. I'm a lesbian woman, have lived in this county for 34 years. And I may not be the expert on Pride Month or on specific things, but what I can tell you is that I live it 24/7 and have done that for years and years and years. So that's me, Joanie Lindenmeyer.
In a nutshell, and I'm Bret Cecil from Port Orford. I'm also a gay man living in Curry County. For 8 years I've been here, so just about a week away I'll complete my 8 years here. I'm also currently the chair of the Curry County Democrats, and with that goes my position with the state party, the Democratic Party of Oregon. I'm also the chair of the Stonewall caucus there. So any expertise I can lend to the conversation, I'm more than happy to do.
Okay, now as far as gay people are concerned, I'll kind of go into my background and that, and I don't think I'm a whole lot different than a lot of people. I'm 81 years old, so I was like a teenager in the 50s, and at that time, I didn't know any gay people or anything like that, but we all kind of thought, I would say about the same, that gay people are a little weird and they're sick and all kinds of things like that. and then Stonewall happened, and I can remember thinking, well, wait a minute, you want to arrest these people because they're wearing different clothes or something? And so anyway, that kind of lightened it up a little bit. And then the American Psychiatric Society or something said that, well, it's an alternate lifestyle.
Illness.
It's not a mental illness.
Classified it
right.
as a mental illness for years.
And I think like a lot of people, then I started saying, yeah, what the hell's the big deal? Mm-hmm. And that's where I am, and I think a lot of people were. And I have always been shocked at how quickly that concept, that idea was accepted, because I think most non-gay people were very close to thinking the way I did. And it took the blacks years and years to get some recognition, and it seemed like gays did it overnight. At least to me, all of a sudden there's 2 lesbians buying a Subaru and all kinds of things like that. And
it is a popular
that was the first gay commercial I saw, and I thought, God, that was gutsy. Mm-hmm. Is that well known in the community? No, I guess not. Huh?
Lesbians have always driven Subarus as long as I can remember.
And as a lesbian, I have never driven a Subaru.
But did Subaru allow them
I think we should make up a thing for straight guys. Straight guys always buy Fords and buy Ford trucks.
Uh-oh.
Well,
that won't give me
So here we go with stereotypes and stigmas. And this is what the whole conversation is probably end up being today.
I have 2 Fords, and one of them is going to be 100 years old in a couple of months. So
Wow.
I also have a Chevy.
Well, I have a little.
But you made me lose my.
And I'm a straight guy.
Sorry, I'm a Dodge guy. I guess that's where the queers are. We drive Dodges.
Yeah.
And isn't it so funny that we as society, whether you're in a local community or you're in a large city, the stigmas, the things that have been told to you in the past stay true with you for years unless you confront that, reflect on it, and see if that really is something you believe or not believe in. Can I tell you a quick story that happened to me?
This
was like 4 or 5 months ago. I walk every day. And this particular day I was walking in Harbor, and a person also walks in Harbor quite frequently on the streets. And so I eventually ran into this person as we were walking. And I said, hey, can I walk with you for a bit? I don't know your name. I see you in the neighborhood. I've been here 34 years. How long have you been here? So we start walking. And he's been here 50 years. And I said, do you have a wife? Do you have kids? Do you work here? Well, I'm retired. I have a wife, been married 52 years. And I said, oh my gosh. I was with my wife for 40 years. And it just blurted out that way. And immediately he says, oh, I hate lesbians. And I said, oh my gosh, I wish you didn't say that, because my honey passed away 3 years ago. We were monogamous. We were together for 40 years and monogamous. It was the best of my life. And I said, that hurts my feelings when you said that. And he goes, oh. I said, well, do you want to stop walking? He goes, no, we can keep walking. And so we walked for another 15, 20 minutes. In between, he'd come up with this phrase, I hate lesbians. I hate lesbians. And after a while,
forgotten that since the last time he said it.
Yeah, exactly. and then eventually, as our talked about the weather and talked about our community, and we talked about my grieving and how he has lost some family members, but not a spouse yet. And so we connected on that angle. And then all of a sudden he says, you're really kind. You're really nice. By the end of our 45-minute talk, we ended up giving each other a hug, because we have now established a relationship that is not built on a stigma, a discrimination, a hate. And that's what happens is one person by one person, we as queer people can let you into our lives and let you see us as real people without how you grew up. He grew up in a Baptist church that taught him to hate gays. That's where this came from. He says, I'm going to talk to my Bible study about you. I go, that would be great.
Right.
There's a lot of things you don't think about. As I said before, we came in here when I lived in Alaska. I was a state trooper, and most of my friends were lesbians because they were the only other liberals.
It goes with the territory.
Yeah. And I was at her house one night having dinner, and two of her friends were there. Both of them were lesbians, and one was a doctor in the Air Force who was about to get out of the Air Force. And the two of them are discussing back and forth where they could move to. And I don't think we could go there and this. We want to go someplace that were accepted. And it didn't even dawn on me, what the hell are they talking about? She's a doctor. She can go anywhere she wants. But no, they had to go someplace that she was a lesbian doctor.
Right, and where she was accepted, and not just accepted, but celebrated.
Yeah.
Celebrated. And that's a big, big thing. So many people want to come to Oregon, for many reasons. And Brett, I hope you're going to talk about some of the equality stuff. Maybe that's a feed into you.
I'll jump in there.
Jump in there. Talk to us about Oregon in terms of queer.
Well, just overall equality. What you're talking about, Joanie, having met somebody while you're walking in Harbor that haven't had experience with people like us. And many of us, I grew up in an age when you just kept that to yourself and you would have been severely antagonized for it. Not like today, it's quite a bit more open. But helping people to get to know people that are different from themselves. Mm-hmm. It's just part of opening our community and making ourselves known to folks. And I think it's really helpful for everybody. I know for myself, having gotten to know people of Latino descent, I'm a Spanish speaker as well, because I've lived outside the country. I learned another language. That opened my horizons greatly by getting to know a whole nother culture and what they're about. So it takes away a lot of that hatred. I was speaking with Rick earlier today about what my background is, because he asked, were you raised Catholic? Because I guess that's a question that was going around before I got here. And I said, oh, no. I was raised in a Mormon family. So I was raised in a straight Republican Mormon family. So I've deviated, I guess would be the term, from that path a little bit.
You'd have been more accepted if you were a Catholic.
Probably.
Maybe yes, maybe no. And we won't go there right now, but
yeah, back on that issue of equality, we all have something to add to our culture and to the places where we live, our communities. And I think it's short-sighted of anybody to turn someone away because they're different than they are. I think it adds to our learning about who people are and what our lives are about.
I mentioned some beginning, and then it spiraled away right right away. And does somebody feel like they want to talk about Stonewall and those some of the ins and outs of it and what happened and why things changed after that? The one thing I know about Stonewall is that it was owned by the mafia, and the mafia used to pay off the cops, so the cops would just leave them alone. And I don't know if the mafia stopped paying or what, but the one night they raided Stonewall, and can somebody pick it up?
The shakedown didn't work. I don't know all of the details behind that with the New York police.
What I can tell you is this.
I'm sorry?
What I can tell you is this. Stonewall is in New York. It was a bar, a gay bar, 1969, and it was known to be a gay bar. So the community knew it. The police knew it. Everybody knew it. But in 1969, you could be fired from your job for being gay. You could be beaten and criminal. It was a criminal. It was,
yes.
That's the correct word.
Arrested.
You were arrested. You could be arrested. It was a criminal offense to be gay. And at that time, everything was gay. It wasn't a lesbian, gay, bi, trans, or any of the other thing. It was all just gay. And so that night, Stonewall was raided, and in the queer world, we call it the Stonewall riot. In a good sense, riot in terms of we learned from it. And but anyway, so that night the paddy wagons came in, and many of the paddy wagons took in. I think it was a total of over 50 people arrested that night. Some were beaten by the clubs, by the police officers. Well, what happens when you go to jail? You eventually will get out. How do you get out? How do you get out of jail? Bail. And so the next day, many of the gay community came by and paid everybody to get out. Well, that triggered the gay community to say, we have to stand up better for ourselves. And that's what triggered the pride parades that we know today. And that within 1 year, and it leads into Harvey Milk, it leads into the production of the pride banner being made, the flag. All of that began because all of a sudden we, the queer community, are willing to stand up with each other and for each other, not just for gay stuff, but equality of everything, from jobs to housing to racial issues.
Daily life.
That's where it came from.
When this raid happened by the police, was this pre-planned that night they were going to resist and not be arrested and instead of just going wrong? Or was it just spontaneous?
Do you have any
people?
details on that, Joanie?
As far as
I
I
missed
know,
the
it was
memo.
spontaneous.
Okay.
As far as I know, it was spontaneous. I did meet a man last year when I was at the Palm Springs Pride. With my books that I've done, I did 5 prides the first year, 10 prides last year. So I hit the big cities last year with it. But in Palm Springs, the booth that I was in was right next to an assisted living program. And the man in there that I talked to for hours, 96 years old right now, and he was at Stonewall.
Oh, really?
He escaped out the back door, so he was not put in a paddy wagon. And he said it was very, very scary, but it fired up the community to act and to do something.
And that got everybody, I think, paying attention.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was incredibly important.
Absolutely.
That was the basis of the movement.
And it's now, the building itself changed hands a number of times, and it was all sorts of, and I think now it's a museum, I think.
I don't know that.
Well, it was a nationally recognized park, I believe. And it seems to
Well,
me on
it won't
January 20th of this year, that designation was taken away.
That's right, Bret. That's right.
Yeah, that designation was taken off the park, so it's not a national park anymore.
Right. And where were you in 1969? You know,
I was just about to graduate high school, but
I was 9 years old.
And do you remember it? Do you remember
you know
that?
what? In a sad way, no, I don't. Where my little Andy Griffith growing up in rural California, it just wasn't a thing. I don't know what else to say. When I first started recognizing, and my parents weren't, how do I say, not homophobic, but they weren't thrilled. Let me just say that. Again, this is the 50s and 60s, right, into the 70s. But it took me, after I got out of the military, realizing, I have family and friends that are gay. I never really knew it. And it just made me very accepting of it, you know.
Awesome.
It really did.
Awesome.
And especially when I heard other family and friends talking almost violently against gay people. I'm like, oh, my God, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
And why would you spend the time on that? Don't you have something else to do?
Yeah, exactly. Why do you
really?
You're worried about somebody else's behavior.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback a little bit on, Joanie, what you were saying. This fellow you walked in Harbor, was that just a couple days ago? A few days?
No, it's about 4 or 5 months ago.
Okay, because
Because in the fall, what are we now, summer?
summer.
So yeah, so 6 months ago.
So yesterday was
like we
my
have
first
other things
Pride
to pay
event,
attention
and I was
to.
very happy and thrilled to go. It was wonderful.
Thank you for coming.
Well,
Welcome,
believe
another
me, and
Pride virgin. That's two from
Your first time Pride event.
right on. And I plan on going to the Crescent City. But the other thing was that morning I pulled into Harbor, right? But I always like to walk there. It's peaceful. It's wonderful. And they had some other event going on in part of that big parking lot by the boats. I didn't know what it was. So when I pulled up, there were I heard two older gentlemen, probably younger than me, but they were down a few parking places. And friends, and I heard them talking. I can't go verbatim, and they were a lot of curse words, but I could hear them. Well, what the hell's going on over there? I don't know. There's some damn Pride event going on. Maybe it's a bunch of men that are, they just went on and on and on. Probably should have confronted them, but I thought,
No.
well, right. And I didn't. But I thought, boy, how sad and sick is that to just blurt that out without, and it wasn't. It was the fire department conducting some kind of a deal.
Yeah.
Right.
But I thought, and here I am thinking about going to the Pride event where we're going to celebrate, and then the two people like that. I just think those people like that are ignorant. Mm-hmm. I really do.
Well, that is the proper term, and I don't mean it in any way to be demeaning, but they just don't understand. They don't know anybody probably that is in the community.
They might not know anybody, but chances are in their family and friends are,
Oh, yes.
some gay people.
Everybody has to have somebody to look down on.
I guess so.
Several years ago, my then brother-in-law told me what he thought was a shocking revelation, that a woman who was a member of a family of friends of his, it turns out that she's a lesbian. And I said, "Oh, what color are her eyes?"
Oh,
This guy
I don't know, some
was
lesbian.
living in L.A. and I couldn't believe that he didn't realize that nobody cares about that anymore.
My favorite was when I heard somebody say, "Oh, isn't Danny Thomas from there?" Those of you old enough to remember who he is.
Here we go. Hey, by the way, you all listeners, you can text in comments here at 541-661-4098. And at that event yesterday, which was wonderful, and we talked about this a little before the show, I missed an opportunity. Maybe I shouldn't. Well, I didn't do it, but there were some protesters there that I.
You want to get me riled up? Let's go.
Well, no, which is good. It kind of riled me up too, and I thought, I probably should go up to them and say, well, what's the deal? What is your problem? But did you guys talk to anybody that actually went up there and maybe talked to them or confronted them?
I'll let Joanie answer first because I have a whole...
I did not. I was busy with my book booth.
Well, okay.
But at the same time, I did have a gentleman come by and ask permission if he could take a picture of my booth. And I said, absolutely, anybody could take a picture of my booth. I did walk over to where they were, and they did have some signs. And I think many a time, people that are protesting, and I don't know the details of the people that were there yesterday. I don't know if they were from an organization, if they were individuals. I don't know that. But what I do know is many of them, it's tied to their religion. It's tied to their belief about God. And as a former nun, I was a nun for 5 years in the Catholic Church. My honey, Carol, was a sister of Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet for 32 years. So we've been ingrained in the Catholic faith. But there are many faiths that they absolutely see it as sin and immoral and absolutely a wrong thing. And they will do whatever they can to make sure that their voice is heard and that they can try to stop, even possibly convert people. You've probably heard of conversion therapy before, but they go to such limits that they want to absolutely change the person. My personal belief is that God made us in an image, and I believe God is love, and I think that we are all born loving and kind people, and it's up to us how we want to live. Do we want to be in that loving mode, in that kind mode? And I believe that love is love. When you become at the age of life where you are intimate with somebody, I think that's your choice who you want to love and how you want to love them. And as long as it's not illegal in the sense that you are harming or you're going to kill them,
right. Right.
But otherwise, love is love. Do you want to add to this, Bret?
Well, I might go another way with it. I completely respect their First Amendment rights to be. It's a public park. Mm-hmm. They can come and say what they want.
For sure.
Issue I had with some of my own friends there in that moment is they want to go and tell them how they're wrong. First of all, let me just say that these are not people you're going to convert in the same way they're probably not converting people there at the event. I would never walk into their church or stand in their parking lot while they're having a meeting and say the types of things they said while we were celebrating joy and happiness in that park. And I saw lots of kids having a really good time. It was a sunny, beautiful day.
It was awesome there.
I was in my booth so I could see what was going on, but I was asked to help run some interference with those folks, and not so much to quiet them, but just to obscure our view of what they were doing behind us. And I could hear some of the things that were being said. And this intention to try and convince people who have this physical way of who they are, this is who we are, to try and tell us that we're wrong, that we need to change our ways. But even further, I was more upset, if I could say upset, with my own friends that were there, engaging in discussion with them and trying to change their mind. This same group has also shown up at one of our rallies we had here opposite the Democrats' office on Chetco Avenue, and wanted to get into the abortion issue and doing all of those things. And I tried really hard with our group just to say, don't speak to them, don't spend time engaging them. And after a few minutes, if they don't have anybody to shout down or talk against, they leave, they go away. So just the fact of giving them the engagement completely accomplishes their mission. They are there not to convert anyone or get a word out. They're there to upset what we're doing because they don't like who we are. So my message and suggestion to any of my fellow LGBTQ folks, please don't engage people in conversation there. You're only upholding their mission.
Good point.
So be kind and turn away. You don't have to respond to what they say, and please don't try and tell them they're wrong, because they have the right to believe whatever they want. But First Amendment rights are First Amendment rights, but there is no law that says I have to listen or respond.
And for me, and again, I was there late. This probably happened earlier in the Pride event, I'm guessing. I didn't get there till around 1:30, but I didn't hear them. I walked kind of near them, but just out of curiosity, and I didn't know what group they were. Or can you even mention it, what group that they were from?
I don't know specifically what their affiliation is, but it's religious-based.
One of the local churches.
And maybe somebody will text us right now if they happen to know.
Oh, that would be great.
Well, and I don't know if they're
I doubt they're
directly tied with any of the churches here in town, but they are some members of a church somewhere in town.
Okay.
I would have gone over and shown them my T-shirt. I don't know.
Well,
I was just
you would have inspired some conversation with that, probably. No, but
my T-shirt, by the way, says. What does it say? So many right-wing Christians, so few lions.
Okay, that's a little antagonistic, possibly.
Yes.
But yeah, that was one little sad spot for me. And again, to me, it was a missed opportunity. And I wasn't going to, you're not going to convert them, and they're not going to convert me. But and I also kind of fleeting thought. I thought if I would have had my cards, I didn't, and it would be interesting to see if any of them would like to join us at one Curry Café.
I'm sure we could.
And again, not to flamethrow or anything, but to get some honest. Why do you really believe that?
And some insight into what.
Insight. So who knows?
I mean, you could say that as far as that the Bible goes about just probably every other page. Why do you believe that? There's so many things in there that you just have to take on faith, and that's what this is.
And it just reminds me of the story I had with the man I walked with in the park. He believed that queer people were bad people.
So
that's why he grew up hating. He never met one, but he hated it. When you grow up, when you hate somebody or hate a certain
race,
ethnic,
whatever.
You got it. It's very hard to change that.
How?
Well, it's easy to hate what you don't know.
Exactly. Very well said.
If we're all made in God's image, does that mean that gay people are not, or?
Well, and what's God's image to you?
Right. There
Well, that's me.
That's the question. That comes back to belief.
Yeah.
And that comes, and speaking of that, in terms of religions, I am so proud of my former congregation, which is the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet, and they are they put on Facebook, they have posted a symbol of the wonderful universal LGBTQ flag and put their name in the middle of it, the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet. And they say it reminds us as Christians to stand with LGBTQIA plus people and all who are marginalized. In accordance with our call to serve the dear neighbor, we celebrate the dignity of every child of God and rejoice in our marvelous diversity. We encourage everyone to join us in our mission of inclusive love for all. And maybe that's really what it means to be a Christian. So I am so proud of my Sisters of St. Joseph.
Certainly does, yes.
Yeah.
What
Now
is
let's
this?
practice that. Let's put it to practice.
Put it to practice. Exactly, Bret.
Why is transgender seem to be so difficult to understand? I mean, this is, I won't call it a condition, but it's a medical situation. It's not it's not somebody does because you want to be a girl when you were a boy. Incidentally, I really enjoyed, I'm sure you've all seen the,
Oh, you're going to
what's the
forget
name of the conclave, the end of the conclave?
Oh, did you like the conclave? Have you seen Will and Harper?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's a movie with Will Ferrell and his very good friend Harper Steele. True story. And they go on a road trip across the United
I started
States.
to watch it, and
It is the best
started out
movie.
with them sitting with a couple of kids in a restaurant chatting, and I thought, that's what this is going to be. But it's a good movie.
It's a very good movie,
Okay.
and it talks about the whole trans thing.
Oh, does it?
So Harper Steele goes on to explain what it's like moving from what he was considered a straight man to this transition. And you just asked, well, what is that? What is that? And a transition for people is so different for each individual, but they don't feel comfortable in who their body is, and they want to make sure that that is right with them. And so they seek help from other people. They seek HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and based upon what decisions they want to make about their body, their physical body, as well as their hormonal body, they make those changes and they become a happier person. They get rid of maybe their old name, their dead name, and come up with a new name. And we have a beautiful trans community here in town, just a beautiful trans community.
But the current administration says that little Billy will go off to school in the morning, and you'll give him his lunch and say, "Have a good day, Billy." And next time you see Billy, he's a girl.
Yeah.
I'm
careful about using the word lie, but that's a lie.
I heard the president
a
say,
lot of lies
yeah,
coming.
not quite exactly like that, but very much like that. And saying that kids can be trans without parents' knowledge or permission. The school nurse couldn't give me an aspirin when I was in. Maybe things have changed a little from that.
And I have to tell you, as a queer, as a lesbian woman, I knew in first grade that I was different. I knew that I was not a straight woman. I couldn't put words on that. And it's the same with, and I don't know how you feel about your life too, Bret, but
So far similar.
so very similar. And I think the majority of people that are gay, lesbian, trans, bi, you know that at a young age. You know that. And then as life goes on, you make the decisions of how you want to proceed on with that. And you come up with first your sexual identity, you determine who you are, and then you move into sexual orientation, which is who you're attracted to. And I think straight people do it as well, but it's society acceptable. 10% of our society is LGBTQ. In the Gen Z group, people under the age of 26, 30% of those people see them somewhere on the LGBTQ spectrum. 30% compared to us, which was, and when I first began, it was more like 5%,
If that.
and now it's up to 10%. So you figure out of every 10 people, one of those people are an LGBTQ person.
And I wonder if that's on the good side, it is more acceptable in certain ways. In other ways, I see it kind of going with this administration. Let me say that it kind of goes backwards right now.
What do you mean by that?
By going backwards?
Yeah.
The way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the lies you were telling me, you're going to send your boy to school and come home, that kind of stuff. It's reaching certain people. Again, I'll use ignorance. I could even go to stupidity maybe, but I'll say ignorance. They will believe this stuff.
Right.
But thank heavens the younger people, maybe they are actually looking beyond that, saying, no, we know that's a bunch of bull. So,
Well, we used to say that the Q in LGBTQ was questioning. And I think it's important that everybody question who they think they are and who they feel that they are, and not just follow along, as some people fit in the sheep herd and there's never any question. But that questioning part of it, some of us come up with that at some point in our life and we act on it or we don't.
Yeah.
Joanie and I sit here as people that have acted on that.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I agree with you completely. And that's why I asked you about the backwards. I think that there are organizations, there are administrations, there are institutions that are going backwards, and that they see it more as a hate and a discrimination thing for us, and that it dispels a lot of fear. And when you start putting fear out there,
It's a rallying cry.
yes.
Okay, we got to get rid of, and Trump kicking all the trans people out of the military, and so I'm doing a speech, and we're going to take care of the rest of the country with that too. There's not going to be as many of those.
Can I say outwardly that I have a beef with that policy?
You do?
I have a very close transgender friend who happens to, I'm going to use they as pronouns, so there's not any gender identification, who right before Trump was inaugurated was given their commission in the National Guard here in Oregon to be a JAG. All that's on the rocks right now, although there are some loopholes and what have you, so it's still moving ahead. But I find that really offensive. This is someone who's really well educated, really well trained, a veteran, who's gone to war for our country, who's protected us during the years of their life and given their time and effort to protect us and uphold our Constitution. And now we're going to question whether or not they should have anything to do with our military any longer.
So we're having trouble meeting quotas, as I understand, for the military.
That part.
And I would imagine if we just crossed the board or kicking out all the trans people, we are kicking out a lot of doctors and scientists and people who are really, really needed by the military. And the military is saying, hey, they're not a problem. Don't blame us. Yeah.
And we want to look at not just the military, but the CIA, a lot of our agencies within the Department of Defense that have folks that have come from the military that work in those agencies and those departments, who now their employment is being questioned. And these are people that have experience.
Yes.
Right.
It's something that you can't just send somebody to community college and have them turn out in a semester and know everything they need to know about these things. This is a lifelong experience.
Yeah.
And why on earth do they care? That's
There's
what
that.
like gay marriage. Why do people get so upset about that?
Good point. I had something written down because as a Californian, and I'm still a Californian, Oregon people, sorry that I am.
Welcome.
Yeah, we're
Anyway.
trying to decide whether or not we want to accept you on the side of the border or not.
Okay,
Yeah, but
okay. I'll keep trying.
You're allowed.
But I remember the big Prop 8 thing, of course.
Oh, yes.
Haven't forgotten.
I didn't lose, but I had a good high school buddy of mine, football buddy. We were just pals. And when the Prop 8 thing started happening, him and his wife, when they were in the same neighborhood at the time, they had the vote yes. I got to think, was it yes on Prop 8? Whatever it was, vote yes on Prop 8 to get rid of gay marriage. If I think I have that correct. Anyway. And boy, that turned my wife and I off pretty, because we had, family, friends. Are you kidding me? And it was backed, Bret, you probably know about this. From what I remember, Mormon Church in Utah put in a lot of money
$2 million
to get that
You remember correctly. They did
going.
the same thing in Oregon, too.
okay. And again, they're fine to do that. And then I can't remember how long it was, and it was disappointing. And I thought, God, California, because California passed it.
Yeah.
There. And
Oregon had the same thing. Measure 36. I
Okay.
didn't live in Oregon at the time. I believe it was 2004.
Yeah.
Amended our state constitution, and it states marriage between one man and one woman.
Okay.
That is marriage in Oregon, and that is how it's written in our constitution currently. And I will segue on that. One of the things I've been working on, and the ACLU has been working on for at least a year, is putting an initiative petition out before the public, the citizens of Oregon, and we're asking for people to sign this petition because we want to put the question on the ballot in November of 2026. So not this coming November, a year from this coming November. And the question is, should women, okay, and let's look at where our intersections are here, women be given the right to health care, however you want to define health care, whether it's a reproductive, IVF, and contraception. Transgender folks, should they have the right to receive health care? And it's just health care. We're not talking about paying for their changes or anything. It's
Right.
for them to seek health care from their own doctor. And then the third point on that is same-gender marriage.
Yes.
So those three things. So anybody who wants to work on this, it's the Equal Rights Amendment. in the Oregon Constitution, the ERA we're calling it, similar to the Equal Rights Amendment that has been passed nationally and is law now
Yes.
in the United States. So we're looking to get this on the ballot for November 2026. So if any of you know...
How do we do that, Bret?
So if you want to sign a petition for this, you can become a volunteer. And equalrightsoregon.com, that's all one word, equalrightsoregon.com is ACLU's website for this campaign. And the first two buttons you will see there, of course, donate's one. That's the easiest way you can get involved in this because collecting these signatures is an expensive task to do this statewide.
Yeah.
They're running with that. Basic Rights Oregon, Planned Parenthood, and Latino Network also are involved in the background and making sure that this comes forward. I'm working as the chair of the Stonewall caucus with the Democratic Party of Oregon to reach out everywhere I can. And I think it's a great opportunity in our rural counties especially to educate the public about what this means.
Why does anybody care? I mean,
Well, there is
keep
that
asking
question. Well, here's why we should. I'll tell you why we should
Let me
care.
make sure I'm saying that the right way.
I'll tell you why we should
Why does
care.
anybody care if two gay people get married? Is that
Have to ask them.
I don't know.
It's an amazing.
why did the
Anyway.
Mormon Church feel like they needed to put in $2 million to stop that?
You'll have to ask them.
That's their church's policy and doctrines. It's the same for many, many churches.
I know.
They're-
Well,
they're-
tell your members not to do it.
exactly.
Don't tell me
that's
not
the
to do it.
Supreme Court.
If I'm not a member.
That's no wonder I'm not a Catholic anymore. I'm an Episcopalian because Episcopal Church believes in and
Right.
supports gay marriage.
Right.
You know, along with the UCC Church, the Presbyterian Church, the Lutheran churches, the Universal ones, the Society. Do you know even the Quakers believe in same-sex marriage?
Really?
Yes.
Well, I'm an
So you need to
atheist.
research. If you're
They don't
a
oppose
queer
it.
person out there, you want to know if you want church backing, if you want to be married in a church, find out which churches do and which churches don't. 36 countries in the world, 36 countries out of all the countries in the world allow same sex. That's about 18 or 20%. That means 80% of our countries in the world do not allow same sex marriage.
And a scarier on that one, and I don't know which, but some countries have the death penalty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God. That is just out of limits, man.
I'm
way out.
an atheist, thank God. So hey,
Thank God.
Welcome.
anything goes.
But back to what Bret was saying, this is the rally call. This
Yes.
is the things that we can do
Right.
instead of just talking about it.
And the other
let's
side,
do
it's
something
a
about it.
rally call too from the other side.
Absolutely.
We have to get some kind of a sex thing on the ballot. So with the Republican.
Well, can I focus this a little bit? Because there is a lot of, and I'm going to call it chatter, a lot of noise going on with all the national issues we see going on every day. Today in California, the National Guard rolled in. The California National Guard was put on alert by President Trump because apparently there are riots that aren't riots going on in California.
And he is trying to
But I'm going
Promote
to cut
those.
you off because I'm trying to help people focus on what we can do. That's not stuff I can do anything about sitting here, or any of us can do anything about. What we can do is get to equalrightsoregon.com, become a volunteer, and circulate a petition. If you can't do that, there is a button in there where you can read more. And I believe when you click on that at the bottom of the page, there's a one-page that you can print out at home and sign. It's a single page of the petition, and you can mail that in. So you don't even have to get to a person. In rural Oregon, it's difficult sometimes to find somebody with a petition. But get involved. Help circulate petitions. They have 10 signatures on each sheet. And if 100 people do 10 signatures,
There
how
you
many
go.
is that?
There you go.
Absolutely.
1,000 signatures, right?
Good
So we
deal.
can add that up. We need 250,000 signatures to get this on the ballot. And it's until July of next year of 2026 is when it'll be the final qualifying. And I'm really sure that we'll get enough signatures to do this.
Brett, is there a local place that people can go and sign that?
There is not.
There's not. And this is important for people to
And
understand.
part of the reason that that isn't the case is that we need to, and they're using the term witness. We need to witness all of the signatures that happen. I certify each sheet that I turn in that I've seen a human being write their name and their signature and ask that they are a registered active voter in Oregon. That's my duty as a circulator. And I have to certify each one of those pages. So I want to make sure that what's on that page is correct, because I'm saying this is true and correct and turning that in.
Wow.
But I want to back up a little bit, back on all that noise and getting our focus put in. We're all old enough to remember 2022. It was right about this time in 2022 that the Supreme Court tossed out abortion rights in this country?
Oh, man.
Okay, it was the Dobbs decision, what we know it as. So all of our women, and for those of us, the men in the room, we have mothers and sisters, wives, possibly ex-wives, daughters, who are part of that population. This affects all of us, regardless of our gender.
It does.
Same thing happened during the Obama administration. The Supreme Court said, hey, that Measure 36 that passed in Oregon that says marriage between one man and one woman is nullified because at the national level, they've allowed same-gender marriage. That was during the Obama administration.
Yeah.
That's what protects us right now. But in that Dobbs decision that happened in 2022, our Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas was very open about making little notes in his decision that he wanted to see some of these issues, and same-gender marriage, one of them, need to come up through the courts. They would like to review those at the Supreme Court level. And I know of at least 9 cases right now that are in federal court working their way up for Justice Thomas to have a peek at with his other conservative folks. And they would like to undo the Obergefell decision, which would leave everybody in the state of Oregon and every other state that doesn't have protections in their own state constitution, they would be left without the right for their marriages to stand. They would be repealed. Okay?
It's a scary future.
It's a spooky thing. So I want to keep in mind that it's up to us, and this is why I want people to focus here at home, local. When I say locally, I say statewide. One of the things that President Trump and the Supreme Court's been really clear on is these are states' rights things, which I personally detest that term, but states' rights issues. So please, everybody listening that can hear my voice, let's flip this on its head. Bring it home to Oregon. Let's amend our Constitution, protect our women folk, our friends that are female in this state, and let's protect our friends that dare to love each other and want to be married. Yeah. I personally never took advantage of that in my life because it just wasn't a thing for me. But for some people, it is. It's what they want to do.
Right.
And my transgender friends, for the same reason women should not have a congressman standing between them and their doctor when they go in to see their OBGYN, no trans person should have a politician standing between them and anybody that would provide them any health care.
Right.
These are things we can do something with here in the state of Oregon. And I recommend that everybody get involved. I encourage you to jump in and get on that.
Okay. Thank you, Bret. Before
Thank you.
We did get a text I want to read here. By the way, that's number again is 541-661-4098. And the text says, I recently read one of Joanie's books, None Better, and was so very impressed and inspired in it. Joanie radiated pure joy. I could see that. And I totally recommend it as a way to better understand the love and joy found in the hearts of LGBTQ couples.
Oh, thank you.
So
thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Joanie, for publishing that.
Yeah. Well, and I wrote 2 more books. I'm going to jump in here.
And I have the whole collection.
Yes. Joyously Free, how to live your truth as an LGBTQ person, ally, or parent is up for a Lambda Award. And a Lambda Award is a national and global award for LGBTQ literary works. So we have been nominated for this. We'll know July 30th if we win. Much of what we're talking about this in our topics today are in the pages of that book with the resource guides, as well as what you're talking about, Bret, to get involved, to understand, as you've been talking about, Rick, is to understand what the whole thing is all about, to move forward and to learn from each other and from the mistakes we've made in the past to move forward now. And you mentioned this is Pride Month. This is the name of the show. We just had a Pride Month, or a Pride Day here. There's more Prides coming up. So wherever you might be, go to a Pride event. June 21st is Crescent City, right down the road.
I will be there.
And that will be at it's at the United Methodist Church.
Right.
Wow.
That is so awesome.
Even better.
That is so awesome. Coos Bay going north is August 9th.
Okay.
Yep. You want to add anything to those, Bret?
I have so many dates in my head. Grant County.
So we know that Hegstad decided that Pride Month would be a good month to start changing the name of some military ships, and the first one he picked on was the Harvey Milk. Because we have to have a warrior
talk about
attitude.
But down.
What he didn't do is research Harvey Milk, because Harvey Milk was a warrior. Yeah, he was a Navy officer and participated in combat, as I understand it, during Korea.
Wow.
He was a Korean veteran.
But
wow.
the defense said, oh, I didn't realize, he was gay? I didn't realize it was Pride Month. And I just
then it's
weaseled away like that.
everything. We got to get rid of that boat.
Right.
Come on.
And my dream is that it won't be Pride Month, that it will be Pride every day of every year.
Yeah,
And
won't
that's
be no
what we're
big
all
deal.
Really hoping
On
for.
a positive note, I mentioned earlier that I was surprised how quickly being gay or lesbian was accepted by the public, and like I said, what color were her eyes?
I love that. That's great.
And I think that's really demonstrated by how far Mayor Pete got. Mm-hmm. When Mayor Pete was he running for president?
His eyes are blue.
Right on.
Thank you for having thank you for having noticed that. I was at a party sitting with about 6 or 8 people, and one of them was gay, and somebody was saying that he got a good chance of becoming president, and I said I would love nothing more than that. I think he's brilliant. He's got everything he needs. But come on, man, he's gay. You don't really think, and everybody looks so shocked at me. How can you say that? And we all, but this is we all. Let's go over to the country bar table and see what they think.
Well, sadly,
he's probably going to run again, I would assume.
He was my first choice.
Mine too.
Mine
was
too.
my first choice.
Mine too.
The man is...
Sorry, I picked Lizzie, but I like Liz Warren. She had a plan.
Okay, well... She was in there, but no, Pete Buttigieg was my choice. But now I lost my train of thought. Hold on, about well, I'll end it there because I'm having a brain freeze. But yeah, Pete Buttigieg was my choice. Oh, back to Ray. Sadly, that's true. If he really would have been able to run, he probably wouldn't have because of the anti-gay bias that's out there in rural America.
He never could have got elected. I stand by my
What now?
I stand by my statement at that table at the party. He never could have got elected. But just the fact that he was that
Probably.
far in the running.
Oh, it was wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important locally for us to work and vote for any of the positions up. So whether that's library board or school board, but to be involved locally, that's how we gain our momentum as a people to be more loving and kind and all-inclusive. And I think the stronger we are as a community, the stronger then we can be a voice for our nation.
Thank you for that,
I
Joanie.
do remember
Speaking my language.
somehow I was watching some conservative news, and they did come up with a I guess you'd call it a legitimate complaint about Buttigieg. He showed up at some kind of a national disaster, a train wreck or something like a train wreck. It must have been and he was wearing just regular loafers. He didn't have.
Oh,
he
we
didn't
got
have
to go
boots
to the
on.
Obama tan suit thing again. Really.
No, I mean this is what they could find out to criticize. He didn't have work
and that's
boots.
the conservative mindset. It's like Zelensky appearing in.
Oh, and that suit Obama wore was horrible.
You know, I can't.
So am I misunderstanding? Lesbians have Subarus and gay guys have loafers?
Duh.
Well,
Is that
I didn't mean no.
Well, apparently Ron
he was wearing-
DeSantis' white rubber boots weren't
You don't-
available.
You don't go to a train wreck disaster wearing
Jiminy
dress shoes.
Crickets. Oh, Jiminy Crickets.
Wow.
And if it had some Carhartts on or something, we could have.
Oh, Jiminy Crickets. Oh, my gosh.
You know-
Oh, my gosh.
Joanie, you brought up the small, like the library board. Now, again, I'm a Californian, so I know we recently had a library board election here.
Yes.
I think
Pat Piper and Cora Rose were victorious.
That's a good people
incumbents
now,
remain.
right?
These are
Excellent
good
people.
workers.
because I've run into a few people in town. All my business is up here, obviously, because there's not a lot of business in Smith River. But a lot of I've seen the cars with the decals that Save Our Children, the library there, blah blah blah. And at one time, I heard the rumor was they were having a good chance of getting in there, but they did not. And that's a wonderful thing because the book burners is what I call them, and it's just ugly stuff.
Can I get on
One
that
of the
subject
early
with you
things.
there, Rick?
Please do.
So Senate bill, and this is in Oregon, not our U.S. Congress, Senate bill 1098 is going to be heard for its third reading tomorrow on Monday, on the 9th. Typically after a third reading, they take a vote immediately whether it's approved or not. And this is called the Freedom to Read bill, and it prohibits what we call burning books. It prohibits banning books in our school libraries and our schools.
Wow.
So
Wow.
thank you, State Senator Lou Frederick of Portland. He's been working on this for a couple of years. Looks like this is going to pass tomorrow. But I would like to ask anybody who lives in Curry County or lives within House District 1, which is Mr. Court Boyce's district, if you would please write to Mr. Boyce and let him know that you support Senate Bill 1098. You don't have to say why, just that you support it.
Yeah.
Let him know. Because
That's good.
Mr. Boyce is not terribly supportive of this bill, but most Oregonians are.
Imagine. Yeah.
And I must say, as an author, it's really hit home since I became an author of how libraries do their business and how every community needs to have a diverse selection, and the people that go into to check out a book or to get it on an ebook or to audiobook it, that they get to choose what kind of book they want to read and look at. And in all libraries, it is absolutely a parent's decision with that child, what that child selects from the library.
And can I say there's a process?
Air Force Academy, you're limited what you can select too. How many books? 180 something books, but they left Mein Kampf in there.
Wow.
So that was-
For contrast, I guess.
What were we going to say, Bret, besides that?
I can't remember where I was on. Oh, process.
Process.
So talking about process, and the process that is due to us in our libraries and our schools is that our library board has a process that they use to decipher which books should be selectable
Right.
by the readership. So that's where we need to stay and not just say, oh, I don't like it. And why should the parents of a few kids in a school or a library district have the say over all of the rest of the parents in the district
Yeah.
as to what should be on the shelf?
Yep.
So just don't send your kids in where those are.
Right. In our library board right now, I love the members on our library board. We have diversity of different opinions and thoughts, but we have a cohesionness of wanting to move forward and make it the best for our community. And that's what I love. So all the people on the board. And if you get a chance, go to the library board meetings. Go to them.
Yeah.
The
Go to
board,
library.
the board addresses
Yeah.
a diverse population of people, if I can use that term without getting too much blowback. The diversity in our county is real. Not everybody wants to just read scripture. There are people that want to read other things too. And those should all be available at any time. Doesn't mean everyone has to read it, but it should be available to someone who wants to.
Right.
Right.
See, and isn't this amazing? All these conversations come out of Pride Month because it's all about being proud of your community, being proud of yourself, and being able to promote everybody else in a positive
Well,
way.
and on the negative side of that comes in discrimination.
Oh, yes.
And I want to circle back a little bit on the Equal Rights for All amendment that I was talking about. This is based on you can only make a constitutional change on the ballot over a single issue. The one issue that allows us to have these three common points together, so women's right to health care, transgender right to health care, and same-gender marriage, is they all are subject to discrimination by sex, which in our state constitution is something that is not allowed. So there have been people who oppose this amendment happening, have been spending time in the courts trying to get it taken off,
Yeah.
just to disqualify it, even as an initiative petition, because they think it's too many things. There are three issues in it, and it's just one issue. It's discrimination based on sex. So whether you're a woman, a gay person, LGBTQ, or a trans person, these are all based on the issue of their sex and their gender.
And I want to go backwards a little bit, what we were talking about again with the Prop 8 and the gay marriage. And gosh, we're almost out of, well, we got 5 minutes left, roughly five. We can fit it. Anyway, I wanted to give a shout out. I know Newsom is, our governor, Newsom, has been under fire here and there. But when he was the mayor of San Francisco, he's the one that kind of flipped over the Prop 8. He said, no, I'm going to allow gay marriage here in San Francisco. God bless him for that.
He was my mayor.
Oh, okay. But I thought it was a great move. It ticked a lot of people off. But then that ended up where the Supreme Court, now I believe I have my facts right, the Supreme Court then, it wouldn't happen now, but the Supreme Court then, a federal court overturned the Prop 8. And after that, the Supreme Court allowed that to be overturned.
The appeals process, due process, allowed that to climb its way through the different levels of the courts till it was heard by the Supreme Court.
Right. So
That's
anyway,
the process.
I thought that again, I didn't talk to my old high school buddy much after all of that, because we did get into a little discussion. We just realized we're not on the same page, man.
Right.
And that's okay.
Well, it is okay. I mean, we didn't, end up fighting or anything, but we could tell, you know what, we're just different. We weren't like the same in high school. That's just life.
Can I toss a little shout out to the citizens of Curry County, especially the voters of Curry County?
Oh, please do.
I want to bobble around on what Joanie was talking about, our recent election that we had for the special districts. This is one of the lowest attended election, if I can call it that. People just don't get involved much because the seats are just out there that people don't see.
Yeah.
But I want to congratulate Curry County. We had almost a 38% turnout in this election. Statewide, it was 20%.
Oh, wow.
So
Way to
Curry
go, Curry.
County, we did a really good turnout. And it wasn't just Democrats, and all points in between. Republicans turned out for this too. They wanted their voices known. Most of them like what our library board was doing here. Most of them like what our community college, our SWAC board, is doing with our community college. People spoke up and made their voices heard. And I think that's really important as we come into 26. It's a midterm election. And that's where this Equal Rights for All amendment is going to be on the same ballot where we reelect Senator Merkley and we reelect our Congresswoman here in Oregon 4, Val Hoyle. So we're going to have to be working to get them reelected. We did a really great job in 24 and kept our state, actually made our state more blue. I don't really like using that term either. But all of our statewide, our treasurer, our secretary of state, and our AG, our attorney general, those were all Democrats that were elected there. And we turned over one of our congressional seats. So we have 5 of our 6 congressional seats in Oregon are held by women, and one of them by the first time by a black woman, Janelle Bynum. So that's something that we did in last November.
Awesome.
And I know for a fact that there are folks out there that just want to turn that over. They don't want us to have that power any longer here. So we're going to have to work really hard in 26 to make sure that we keep our friends in elected places that are doing the really good work of now and today.
Right. And I know this gets overused, and boy, we got about 3 or 4 minutes left. That is, about this is the most important election in the history of the world. I mean, you've heard that, but I'm starting to think this midterm nationally election is, because boy, I hope we're going to turn the tables on the horribleness of the last.
But again, I say what we can do here, what we have control of, what we can do here at home is what we should be focusing on. All those other congressional seats, we might be able to write some postcards to people that live in other states, maybe to try and get their attention, get them to vote. But making the difference here at home where we live is what will affect us.
You bet.
Absolutely. And I think that comes down to some real basic things of treating our neighbors, treating the people in our own community with good vibes. Give them big smiles, talk to people, be with people. And we don't have to jam anything down anybody's throat, but let's just throw it out there. Let's talk about it. Let's see if we can change one heart at a time. As my lover of my life for 40 years, she would always say, Joanie, smile big and wear bright colors. And it makes a big difference when you're talking personally with somebody. Get that smile out there.
And what an example of you walking with that gentleman that you were talking about. I mean, that's doing it in action.
Yeah.
And when we say equality, we mean everybody across the board.
Everybody.
I mentioned that there were Republicans in this last election that I spoke with. I'm not going to say specifically who which state representative was all behind keeping our SWAC board, helped us out there too.
Okay.
So when we get like minds working together, we can make things happen for everybody equally across the board. I think it's really important for us to keep that in mind in our communities.
Yeah. Well, we are getting close, so I just want to make sure to profusely thank Bret and Joanie for being here.
Thank you, Rick.
Let me just...
I profusely thank you for having us.
These microphones are open to just about anybody, so if you have any subject you want to talk about, but if you want to have an opposing view to today, you're more than welcome to come in and just get a hold of us at KCIW, Ray Gary, or Rick, and we'll schedule you in.
KTIW.org, yeah.
Great invite.
Give us a shout.
And I like Rick's idea of having some opposing views come in and speak.
We have tried.
I have missed opportunity yesterday.
I went to Trump demonstrations. I went to a regular visitor to the Republican office here, but we don't seem to get any response.
Yeah. I do recall that you guys had a Republican from Del Norte County here last year.
Yes, we did.
Trying to remember, I don't remember what the subject matter was that day, but we had a really good, rousing conversation.
It was rousing.
So I have to take that back. We did have. Now, is he talking about the guy who was running for?
Yeah, and also I can't remember the guy's name now. The other one that I'm having a brain freeze again. But we've had them on a couple times.
Yeah.
Well, this has
Okay.
been delightful. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Again,
being here.
KCIW.org.
KCIW, LP 100.7 here in beautiful Brookings. Thank you guys.
You bet. Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride.